Bro, I swear, every time I watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'm just blown away by how a kids show managed to deliver such a deep, layered story. There's war, there's coups, trauma everywhere. And let's not forget the flying bison, who honestly deserves his own spin-off. And of course, we've got the fan theories, ranging from, yeah, that actually makes sense, all the way to my brain just exploded. Today, we're diving back into this incredible saga, covering everything from the Fire Nation's chaos, Azula's descent into madness, and the roller coaster that is Zuko's identity crisis. Seriously, the guy went on a full-blown existential tour. So get comfy on the couch, smash that like button to show some love, and let's revisit this amazing show from our childhood.
Water, earth, fire, air.
And just like that, our story kicks off, with two siblings out fishing and accidentally cracking open a giant iceberg. Inside, a bald, tattooed kid named Aang. And surprise, surprise, he's an airbender, which is wild because no one's seen one of those in 100 years.
Really? It fell higher than that.
Oh, and he's got a flying bison named Appa, because every hero needs a cool pet sidekick. It's basically a rule. Katara, the sister with the patience of a saint, sees hope in Aang. Sokka, her brother and full-time skeptic, immediately senses this is gonna be a whole mess.
I'm going home to where stuff makes sense.
And, well, he's not wrong. Aang's return sends off alarm bells for Zuko, a banished prince from the Fire Nation who's been hunting the Avatar, like it's some messed up version of the Amazing Race Bounty Hunter edition. Zuko's not doing this for fun, though. The kid got kicked out by his own father for showing compassion. Yup, during a military meeting, he questioned the genius idea of sending troops to their deaths, and his dad, Ozai, a real father of the year type, decided the best response was to burn his face in front of everyone and banish him with an impossible task: find the Avatar, who, by the way, everyone thought was dead. Parenting level, Fire Nation. Luckily, Zuko's not alone. He's got Uncle Iroh tagging along, an ex-general who decided sipping tea beats blowing stuff up. He's basically a chill life coach disguised as a sleepy old man. Meanwhile, Aang, still totally unaware of how much danger he's in, decides it's a great idea to check out an abandoned Fire Nation ship. Surprise, surprise, playing archaeologist backfires and ends up broadcasting his location to Zuko.
Quite agile for his old age. I found the Avatar.
So Zuko rolls up to the Southern Water Tribe and absolutely wrecks the place. Sokka tries to defend his home with nothing but a boomerang and zero bending skills. Spoiler, it doesn't go great. Aang realizes he's putting everyone at risk and does the classic good guy move. He gives himself up, but Katara and Sokka aren't having it. They hop on Appa and fly off to rescue him. Before they even get there though, Aang breaks himself out and, in the middle of the chaos, activates something no one expected to see: the Avatar state. It's like unlocking mystical Godzilla mode, and that's when Zuko finally gets it. This mission wasn't just hard, it was actually impossible. Now officially on the run, Aang, Katara, and Sokka set off on a new quest: to get Aang to the Northern Water Tribe so he can learn waterbending. But the journey there? Yeah, it's gonna be more complicated than calling your internet provider. First stop, the Southern Air Temple. Aang rolls up thinking he's about to reunite with his people, only to get hit with the harshest reality check ever. The Fire Nation wiped out the air nomads and basically turned the temple into a haunted museum. If he didn't have trauma before, he sure does now. On the bright side, he picks up a flying lemur named Momo, because nothing says emotional support like an airborne raccoon cat. Next up, we get our first real villain who's not Zuko, Commander Zhao. This guy's got the swagger of a shady senator pitching a pyramid scheme. He's a power-hungry general with a god complex and decides he alone should be the one to capture the Avatar. Honestly, his ego could probably qualify as its own bending element. The man's got more volume than an anime protagonist's hair. Then we hit Kyoshi Island, where Aang is treated like a full-blown rock star and Sokka gets a much-needed wake-up call. Turns out, female warriors? Yeah, they don't mess around. He meets Suki, the badass leader of the Kyoshi warriors, who teaches him not to underestimate anyone, especially not women trained to kick ass in full face paint.
Anything else you want to teach us?
Of course, Zuko crashes the party because he's basically the world's most determined third wheel, so the squad dips out again and heads to Omashu. There, Aang accidentally starts beef with a cabbage vendor, the real victim of this series, let's be honest, and discovers the city's eccentric king is actually his childhood buddy, Bumi. He may look like your grandpa after 5 espressos, but don't be fooled, Bumi is one of the strongest earthbenders alive. And just like that, Team Avatar keeps it moving, helping people, dealing with cranky spirits, and going on a highly questionable road trip straight into Fire Nation territory. Right in the middle of the adventure, Aang gets hit with some seriously bad news. Thanks to the spirit of Avatar Roku, he finds out that Sawzin's comet is coming back in just a few months. And guess what? That means Fire Lord Ozai is about to level up like a final boss, and basically scorch the rest of the world off the map. If Aang doesn't master all 4 elements before summer rolls around, game over. Meanwhile, Zuko is spiraling deeper into his obsession with capturing the Avatar. The problem? His uncle Iroh, being the absolute legend he is, can see what's happening and tries to gently remind his nephew that chasing validation from his maniac of a father might not be the healthiest life goal. But Aang doesn't have time for Zuko's daddy issues. He's got an impossible mission ahead of him, and to make things worse, there's not a decent waterbending teacher in sight. The solution? Stealing a waterbending scroll from a group of pirates. Yep, because clearly, what this kid needs right now is more people trying to kill him. At this point, it's crystal clear. This isn't just a story about mastering elements. It's a full-on race against time to stop a madman from burning the world to the ground. And Aang, the kid who never even wanted to be the Avatar, is going to have to carry that weight, whether he's ready or not. After a few, let's just say, emotionally taxing detours, Aang, Katara, and Sokka ran into Jet and the Freedom Fighters, a ragtag group of teenage rebels who, on paper, were fighting the good fight against the Fire Nation. Jet, rocking the charisma of a team drama heartthrob, instantly caught Katara's eye.
You want to see it?
Yes, we want to see it.
The problem? His idea of freedom involved blowing up entire villages, innocent civilians and all, just to take out a few enemy soldiers. Katara was crushed when she found out her revolutionary Romeo was actually a teenage sociopath with a bomb fetish. Luckily, Sokka's reliable BS radar was on point as usual, and he managed to stop the disaster before it happened, leaving Jet to deal with the wrath of a girl scorned, which, let's be honest, is way more terrifying than any Fire Nation army. But Team Avatar's problems were just getting started. Aang began having nightmares, the spooky kind, full of ghostly faces and thundercloud guilt trips. Turns out, vanishing for 100 years kinda weighs on your conscience, and things hit even harder when an old man recognized him as the Avatar. No more hiding from his past. It was time to face the music. Cue the flashback. Aang remembered the day the monks told him he was the Avatar, which, by the way, usually happens at 16, not 12. But thanks to a little thing called impending war, the monks decided to rush things. From that point on, everything changed. His friends started treating him like he was made of glass, and, adding insult to injury, even Jinju was getting invited to play more than him. The final straw? They tried to separate him from Gyatso, his mentor and father figure. So, in a moment of panic, Aang ran off with Appa. But a storm caught them mid-flight, and the next thing he knew, boom, he was an Avatar popsicle for the next century. And just when you thought the existential dread couldn't get worse, Aang got himself captured by Commander Zhao while out hunting for medicinal frogs to help his sick friends. Things were looking bleak, until out of nowhere, a masked swordsman known only as the Blue Spirit busted in and pulled off a jailbreak straight out of an action movie. The big twist? It was Zuko under the mask. Yup, the same angsty prince who'd been chasing Aang across the globe like it was his full-time job. Turns out, Zuko was already starting to question the whole honor through violence narrative. Next stop, an abandoned air temple now home to Earth Kingdom refugees. There, the gang met a quirky inventor who was building wild gadgets to help his people, including his son, who used a wheelchair. But surprise, surprise, the Fire Nation wanted to strong-arm him into building weapons.
If I don't get what I came for, the Fire Nation will burn this place to rubble.
Obviously, Team Avatar wasn't about to let that slide. Then came a village basically run by a fortune teller who made all the town's decisions based on crystal ball vibes, trying to convince people that destiny isn't set in stone. Easier said than done, but reality has a way of proving a point. After that, they reunited with Bato, an old friend of Katara and Sokka's family. It was all warm fuzzies until Zuko sent in his latest hired gun, June, a no-nonsense bounty hunter with a beastly tracking creature that could probably sniff out your Amazon search history. In the chaos, Aang managed to snag Katara's lost necklace, scoring some major bonus points in her personal leaderboard. On the hunt for a firebending teacher, Aang found Zhong, a grizzled firebender who bailed on the Fire Nation once he realized the whole thing was a moral dumpster fire. At first, he didn't want to teach Aang, but eventually gave in. Unfortunately, Aang got a little too hyped during training and accidentally burned Katara. Major reality check. But from that pain came something incredible. Katara discovered she had the ultra-rare ability to heal using waterbending. Even Zhong was shook. That kind of power doesn't just show up every day. Meanwhile, Zhao, Zhong's former student and current vendetta holder, was still out there, nursing a grudge and a severe lack of chill. And when a guy like Zhao holds a grudge, you know something's gonna explode. Zhao, who was already way too obsessed with the Avatar, suddenly decided that Zuko was a problem too. After all, the exiled prince turned out to be the Blue Spirit, the guy who broke Aang out of captivity. Zhao's brilliant solution: hire some pirates to take Zuko out discreetly. And by discreet, we mean not at all. But Zuko survived. While Zhao was busy gathering a fleet to attack the Northern Water Tribe, Zuko used every stealth trick in the book to sneak aboard the enemy ship like some kind of fire-bending ninja. After a long journey full of battles, the Avatar crew finally made it to the Northern Water Tribe, but the peace lasted all of 5 minutes. First, Katara met Master Pakku, a waterbending teacher who flat out refused to train girls. Because apparently, in his mind, waterbending was some kind of exclusive boys' club.
You didn't tell me your friend was a girl. In our tribe, it is forbidden for women to learn waterbending.
Katara wasn't having any of that nonsense. She challenged him to a duel and held her own like a boss. That fight revealed a wild twist. The necklace Katara wore, Pakku had made it decades ago for his long-lost love, who turned out to be Katara's grandmother. The emotional whiplash hit him so hard that he decided to drop the whole sexist nonsense and agreed to train her. Meanwhile, Sokka fell head over heels for Princess Yue. Small problem, she was already engaged. So now our boy, who can never catch a break, found himself tangled in a royal love triangle. And if that wasn't enough drama, the Fire Nation was on its way, coming in hot. The final battle of Book 1 was about to go off. The Fire Nation launched a full-scale attack on the Northern Water Tribe, but once night fell, the waterbenders started turning the tide, literally, since their power peaks under moonlight. Amid the chaos, Iroh tried for the 1000th time to talk some sense into Zuko. The man had already lost his own son. He wasn't about to lose his nephew too. While all this was happening, Aang tried to get help from the spirit world, but before sunrise, Zuko managed to capture him. Time was up. The battle reignited with everything the Fire Nation had. Their army broke through the tribe's defenses and started pushing forward. In the spirit world, Avatar Roku guided Aang to Ko, the terrifying, face-stealing spirit. There, Aang learned the moon spirit was tied to 2 sacred fish in the tribe's sanctuary. Back in the real world, Katara and Sokka swooped in and rescued him. Zuko didn't even have time to blink, but things were about to get a lot worse. At the height of his villain era, Zhao killed the moon spirit. The sky turned blood red. All over the world, chaos erupted. Yue, whose life had been saved by the moon spirit when she was a baby, realized this was her moment to give back. She sacrificed herself to restore balance, becoming the new moon spirit. Fueled by grief and rage, Aang entered the Avatar state and wiped out the invading fleet, securing a win for the tribe. But this was just one battle. The war was far from over. Sazan's comet was still coming, and Ozai was just biding his time, waiting for the perfect moment to burn the whole world down. Yue gave Sokka one last look and told him she'd always be with him. The Fire Nation had just taken a massive L at the Northern Water Tribe, but it came at a serious cost. With new challenges ahead, Aang, Katara, and Sokka headed to Omashu, where Aang hoped to train with his old buddy King Bumi. But before they could even get there, they made a pit stop at a random Earth Kingdom colony, where people basically rolled out the red carpet for them after their big win. The party didn't last long. Enter General Fong, local commander and full-time idiot, who had the brilliant idea of forcing Aang into the Avatar state to use him as a walking nuke against the Fire Lord. Aang obviously said no, but Fong heard no and decided it meant try harder. He pulled every trick in the book to trigger Aang.
Water, earth, fire, air. 4 elements together as one.
Even going so far as to threaten Katara, and that's when things went south. Aang snapped, went full Avatar mode, and nearly leveled the entire place. Amid the chaos, Avatar Roku popped in with some pretty grim news. Sure, the Avatar state is powerful, but it's also super risky. If Aang died while in it, that was it. The Avatar cycle would break, and peace would basically be cancelled forever. So yeah, Fong's genius plan almost sparked a spiritual apocalypse. Great job, General. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the world, a new player entered the game. Princess Princess Azula, Zuko's younger sister. She was sent out to capture both the Avatar and her own brother. Classic sibling bonding, right? Uncle Iroh instantly smelled a trap. But Zuko, bless his delusional little heart, wanted to believe Azula was offering him a way back home. That dream lasted about 5 minutes. One of Azula's soldiers let something sketchy slip, and boom, ambush confirmed. The difference between Zuko and Azula was pretty clear. He still had a soul. Azula, that girl, micromanages evil. Thankfully, Iroh jumped in and got them both out of there. From that point on, they were officially on the Fire Nation's blacklist. Back with Team Avatar, the gang met a group of nomadic musicians whose love for song seriously tested Sokka's will to live. Meanwhile, away from his dad's toxic influence, Zuko started to see the world differently. He left Iroh for a bit to go on a journey of self-discovery and ended up stumbling across a poor but kind family who offered him food and shelter. No questions asked. For once, someone treated him like a human, not a fugitive. But of course, peace didn't last. Some Earth Kingdom thugs showed up to extort the family, and Zuko couldn't just sit back and watch. He stepped in and had to reveal his firebending. The kid who'd looked up to him now saw him as a monster. That same fire Zuko thought was his strength, to the rest of the world, it was a weapon of fear. That night, Zuko spiraled into memories of his childhood, the rare, quiet moments he shared with his mother, the only one who ever truly believed in him. She always told him he was strong and capable, but to the rest of the family, Azula was the golden child. She was born special. Zuko was just born. That was the brutal truth. But the tragedy that really changed everything, the death of Lieutenant Iroh's son, during the siege of Ba Sing Se. Iroh was shattered, and that's when Ozai made his move. He marched up to Fire Lord Azulon demanding the throne, saying Iroh was too emotionally wrecked to lead and the Fire Nation needed someone strong. Azulon was not having it. Furious at Ozai's nerve, he ordered him to feel the same pain by sacrificing his own firstborn. Yep, Zuko. But then something weird happened. That same night, Azulon mysteriously died, and Zuko's mom disappeared. Meanwhile, Aang and the gang finally made it to Amashu, only to find out the city had been taken over by the Fire Nation. Bumi had been defeated and imprisoned, but instead of fighting back, he chose to wait it out, saying, "The key to earthbending is listening and waiting." Not exactly the rescue they were hoping for. With few options, Team Avatar came up with one of their classic, ridiculous but genius plans. They started a rumor about a deadly, contagious disease. The Fire Nation governor panicked and ordered an evacuation. Boom, civilians saved. No bending required, just a little mass hysteria. But that's when things took a sharp turn. Enter Azula. Cool, calculated, and absolutely terrifying. And if that wasn't bad enough, she brought along 2 childhood besties who were just as dangerous. Ty Lee, a bubbly acrobat who could take down a bender with a single poke, and May, who threw knives with the same enthusiasm most people throw darts at a bar on Friday night. This chaos trio nearly captured Aang, but Team Avatar managed to slip away. Barely. Then came a twist. After being rescued, Bumi revealed he never planned to escape. He told Aang he needed to find a different kind of earth-bending master, someone who truly understood patience and endurance. The journey continued. The gang stumbled upon the Swamp Benders, a completely off-the-grid tribe Katara didn't even know existed. While there, Aang had some weird visions of a mystery girl and a flying boar. He brushed it off, but destiny wasn't done yet. In the next Earth Kingdom city, they heard whispers of an underground earthbending tournament. Sounded sketchy, which meant they had to check it out. Most fighters there relied on brute strength, smashing everything without much thought. But then she appeared, the blind bandit, small, silent, and absolutely unstoppable. She fought using the exact philosophy Bumi had described. Her name, Toph Beifong. To the world, she was just a delicate, blind girl. To her overprotective parents, the idea of her fighting was laughable. But behind the scenes, she was the reigning champ of the tournament. When a misunderstanding got Aang and Toph in hot water with the tournament organizers, the blind bandit showed everyone what she was really made of. Aang knew instantly. This was the earthbending master he'd been looking for. Convincing her parents, though, not a chance. Instead of seeing how incredible their daughter was, they doubled down and tried to lock her away even more. So, Toph did what any earthbending badass would do. She ran away and joined Team Avatar. Problem was, her dad thought she'd been kidnapped, and he put out a ridiculous bounty for her return. Meanwhile, Azula was still on their trail. During one of their escapes, Toph had a surprise run-in with Uncle Iroh. Over a casual cup of tea, the old man dropped some serious wisdom, arguably the best advice she'd ever received. But of course, peace didn't last. Azula attacked again, forcing Team Avatar and the so-called exiles, Zuko and Iroh, to team up, and the battle that followed, total chaos. Zuko, Azula, Aang, Katara, Sokka, and Toph, all fighting at once. Azula, true to form, didn't play fair. In the middle of the fight, she pulled a cheap move and struck Iroh while no one was looking. Zuko was shattered. At that moment, nothing else mattered. He had to save the one person who had ever truly loved him. After barely escaping that chaotic showdown with Azula, Aang finally kicked off his earthbending training with Toph. But unlike Katara, who taught with all the love and patience of a Disney mom, Toph treated Aang like a human punching bag. No gentle words, no supportive pep talks. Her rule was simple: be like a rock, or get crushed like mashed potatoes. For an airbender used to dodging and going with the flow, this was basically torture. But slowly, Aang started to get it. He learned how to listen to the earth. Exhausted, the gang decided they deserved a little R&R in a dreamy oasis. Seemed like a great idea, until they ran into a very enthusiastic professor, obsessed with finding a legendary library. Problem was, that library was guarded by none other than Wan Shi-tong, the giant owl spirit who is seriously not here for your nonsense. The place held the knowledge of every era, and Wan Shi-tong allowed them in, on one condition: don't use the info for shady business. So of course, guess who couldn't help himself? Yep, Sokka. He discovered a solar eclipse was on the way, and during it, firebenders would lose their powers, until Mr. Owl realized they were planning war strategy and decided, okay, you all need to go, and started sinking the entire library into the sand. Toph tried to hold it up, but she had to make an impossible choice: save her friends or save Appa. In the end, the sandbenders made the choice for her.
I'm sorry, Appa.
By kidnapping Appa, Aang was heartbroken. When they finally tracked down the thieves, they found out Appa had been sold off to Ba Sing Se. Aang nearly lost it, but Katara was there to ground him. Meanwhile, the professor decided to stay behind in the sinking library, because apparently, being buried alive under a mountain of scrolls was his idea of a dream vacation. Elsewhere, Iroh and Zuko arrived at the same oasis the gang had visited earlier. There, Zuko discovered his uncle was part of a secret society called the Order of the White Lotus, a mysterious reveal that would pay off big time later. For now, their next stop was also Ba Sing Se, same as Aang and the crew, but the journey was anything but smooth. At the Serpent's Pass, the gang helped a pregnant woman make it across the treacherous path, bumped into Suki again, and after way too much stalling, Sokka finally grew a spine and kissed her. First Princess Yue, now a Kyoshi warrior. Our boy's got range.
Yeah, boy.
Bonus chaos. Toph accidentally kissed Suki thinking she was Sokka. Just another day in the life. In the middle of this soap opera, Aang witnessed the birth of a baby and felt a renewed sense of hope. But of course, that peace didn't last long, because Azula, being the brilliant little maniac she is, launched her next move, invading Ba Sing Se with a giant drill. Sokka, to his credit, came up with a genius plan: take it down from the inside.
No way am I going in that metal monster. I can't bend in there. I'll try to slow it down out here.
Thanks to his strategic brain, Team Avatar managed to destroy the machine, stopping the invasion. For the first time, Ba Sing Se actually felt safe. While the group celebrated the win, Zuko and Iroh ran into a familiar face: Jet. The ex-freedom fighter wanted a fresh start in the Earth Kingdom's capital. At first, things were cool. They even bonded over handing out food on the ferry. But Zuko isn't exactly the let's be besties type. And, well, destiny had other plans. Then came Iroh's fatal mistake. While warming up some tea, he caught Jet's attention, and Jet, being the overdramatic vigilante that he is, became obsessed with proving they were firebenders. Eventually, he confronted Zuko in public, and that's when all hell broke loose. The city's secret police, the Dai Li, swooped in and arrested Jet, dragging him off to some shady, unknown location, a place that Team Avatar was about to get very familiar with. When the gang finally made it to Ba Sing Se, they were greeted by the weirdest woman ever, Ju Di. She talked like she'd been programmed by a glitchy customer service robot, claimed she was sent by the Earth King King himself, but every time someone brought up the war or the upcoming eclipse, she'd change the subject faster than a mom dodging a question about Santa. Everything about her felt fake and rehearsed. The creepy vibes only got stronger when an old man warned them, "Don't talk about the war, and whatever you do, stay far away from the Dai Li." The Dai Li were the city's secret police. But here's the kicker. They weren't loyal to the king. Their true allegiance was to the head of the government, Long Fang, and according to him, the war didn't exist. "We've been at peace for 100 years, and we will remain at peace." Translation: the biggest city in the Earth Kingdom was run by a denial-fueled dictator who thought ignoring the war would make it go away. And now, Team Avatar was officially under surveillance. During their stay, everyone had their own little side quest. Katara and Toph had a rare girls' day, hit up a sauna, and got even closer as friends. Aang, still laser-focused on finding Appa, spent the whole time asking literally everyone in the city if they'd seen a flying bison. His search eventually led him to help rescue a bunch of animals, which somehow turned into building an animal shelter, accidentally funded by none other than the cabbage merchant. Yep, man just can't catch a break. His produce empire crumbled again. Sokka, on the other hand, stumbled into a poetry slam and found out he had a hidden talent for haikus, until he got kicked out for breaking the rules. Classic Sokka. Zuko, though, had a rare moment of peace. He fell for a kind Earth Kingdom girl.
Close your eyes.
And, for the first time, imagined a life without war or chasing the Avatar. Meanwhile, Iroh, because of course, continued being the best person alive. He helped a criminal turn his life around, gave wise advice to a crying kid, and then ended the day honoring the memory of his late son, Lu Ten. Alone, he lit incense and quietly wept. One of the show's most heartbreaking moments. And Momo missed Appa just as much as Aang did. So naturally, he went on his own little mission. With a piece of Appa's fur and paw, he got into a fight with panther cats, got captured, escaped, as you do, and then, plot twist, found a giant footprint. That smell? No doubt about it. Appa had been there. From the moment he was kidnapped, Appa never caught a break. Sold to a circus in Ba Sing Se, he was mistreated, forced to follow cruel commands, and straight up abused. But his wild, unbreakable spirit, that never gave in. Even while injured, starving, and completely alone, he kept going. The only thing that kept him alive were the memories of Aang and the rest of the gang. After a desperate escape, he crossed paths with Suki and the Kyoshi warriors, who patched him up and helped him get back on his feet. Well, pause. But of course, peace never lasts long when Azula's in the picture. Appa was forced to flee again, this time making his way to the Eastern Air Temple. That's where he met Guru Patik, an eccentric old man who clearly had one too many cups of herbal tea, if you know what I mean. Patik told Appa he'd been expecting Aang, but the Avatar hadn't shown up yet. Guru Patik had been looking after Appa, helping him heal and get his strength back. And before setting the big guy free, he tied a message to one of his horns. Appa took off toward Ba Sing Se, stronger than ever and ready to finally reunite with Aang. But just as he was about to find his buddy, guess who showed up? Long Fang, ready to ruin the moment and capture him. Meanwhile, Aang and Team Avatar had basically turned the search for Appa into the biggest missing bison campaign the city had ever seen. Posters everywhere. That's when they ran into Jet, who suddenly wanted to help them find Appa. One small issue though, he didn't remember anything about being arrested. Sokka, as always, had his internal sketchometer going off.
Jet's been brainwashed. That's crazy.
When they pressed Jet for answers, he started getting bits and pieces of his memory back. One word echoed in his mind, Lake Laogai, and just like that, the gang headed straight there. What they found was a secret underground base run by the Dai Li. They snuck in, faced off against Long Fang and his agents, and Jet finally snapped out of his hypnosis. But during the chaos, Long Fang struck, and it was bad, really bad. The kind of hit that makes you realize, that's it. Toph and Katara saw there was nothing they could do. While Aang, crushed, kept searching for Appa, the team found the cell where he had been held. Empty. Just when hope was running out, Appa showed up. That reunion was so epic that even the Dai Li couldn't interrupt it. Of course, Long Fang, being the snake he is, tried to stop them, and with one powerful air blast, he sent Long Fang flying. Honestly, that should have been the end of him, but Aang had no idea what else had been going on. While Team Avatar was fighting their way through the city, Zuko had actually found Appa first. That's right, the Avatar's destiny literally landed in his lap, but before he could do anything, Uncle Iroh stepped in with the real talk. Is this what you want? Or what your father wants? And for the first time, Zuko paused. For the first time, he made the right choice. With Appa back, and the whole gang together again, it was time to take down the Dai Li and free Ba Sing Se. They headed straight to the Earth King's palace to tell him the truth about the war. Unfortunately, the guards were about as open-minded as a brick wall, and trained to be about as flexible too. But hey, they messed with Toph. Some of those guys are definitely still recovering recovering from that mistake. The real problem? Longfang had already poisoned the Earth King's mind with lies, but even he couldn't ignore that kind of proof. A giant Fire Nation drill lodged into the outer wall of the city. So much for Ba Sing Se is impenetrable, but the worst was still coming. Following Guru Patik's guidance, Aang traveled to the Eastern Air Temple to unlock his chakras and master the Avatar state. Everything was going smoothly, until the final step. To complete the training, Aang had to let go of all earthly attachments, including his love for Katara. Yeah, no surprise, he couldn't do it. Love over perfection. Classic Aang move. Meanwhile, Toph got a letter from her mom. Thinking it was a heartfelt message, she went to meet her, only to walk straight into a trap. She ended up captured. Sokka, on the other hand, found out his dad was nearby and set off to find him. But before any warm reunions could happen, Aang had a disturbing vision. Something was seriously wrong in Ba Sing Se. Without hesitation, he ditched the training and flew back. While all this was going on, Zuko was busy being sick. Like, really sick. Not the flu kind, spiritual crisis kind. He had wild dreams about his mom, about dragons, and even saw himself bald like Aang. It was a whole identity meltdown. His body and soul were in full-on civil war. But when he finally woke up, he was different. Something had shifted, and while Zuko was busy battling his demons, Iroh was fighting a much tastier battle, making the perfect cup of tea. Spoiler alert, he nailed it. The whole city fell in love with it, and suddenly, the two of them were invited to serve tea to the Earth King himself. Team Avatar thought they'd won, they were wrong. Azula was always 2 steps ahead. With manipulation skills that'd make even Longfang blush, she took control of the Dai Li, and, with them, the entire city. Luckily, Iroh escaped, but Zuko and Katara were thrown in prison, and for the first time, they saw each other not as enemies, but as equals. Both had lost their mothers to the war. Both carried scars they couldn't hide. Meanwhile, Toph was out there making history. Literally. Trapped and alone, she invented metal bending on the spot and broke herself out, like a boss.
Come on, metal fudge. Woo! Toph, you rule.
The gang regrouped with Iroh, but Azula's takeover was already done. Ba Sing Se was crumbling. The final battle went down in the palace catacombs. Zuko had to choose. Follow Iroh's path of wisdom and compassion, or chase the promise of power with Azula. In the end, he chose his sister. Because let's face it, facing the Fire Nation seemed easier than facing himself. With the Dai Li backing her, Azula turned the tide. Team Avatar was outmatched. Desperate, Aang tried to enter the Avatar state, but Azula struck him with a lightning bolt. Mid-transformation, he went down, hard, just when all hope seemed lost. Iroh showed up and bought just enough time for Katara to escape with Aang. Only the spirit water from Pakku was able to bring him back. But it didn't change the facts. The war was nearly won. Ba Sing Se had fallen, and with it, the entire Earth Kingdom. Sometime later, Aang woke up on a Fire Nation ship. For a second, he thought he was trapped in some nightmare, until he saw his friends, and realized he had hair. Yeah, hair. That's when the panic really kicked in. The world thought he was dead, and in his mind, he had failed, again. Sokka filled him in. After escaping Ba Sing Se, they joined up with his dad's group, hijacked a Fire Nation ship, and headed straight into enemy territory. Their plan? Hit the Fire Nation capital during the solar eclipse, when firebenders would be completely powerless. Smart, right? But Aang wasn't on board. He couldn't stand the idea of being remembered as some fallen hero, fueled by guilt and frustration. He did what Aang does best, ran off on his own. His goal? Take down the Fire Lord solo, and end the war once and for all. Spoiler alert, terrible idea. Aang ended up stuck in a storm, and that's when the spirits of Avatar Roku and Princess Yue popped in for a much-needed intervention. Basically, their message was, maybe don't wing it this time.
You already saved the world. And you'll save the world again. But you can't give up.
So Aang went back to the group and, reluctantly, accepted that, yeah, having a plan might actually be useful. If the enemy thought the Avatar was dead, maybe it was better to keep it that way, for now. Meanwhile, Zuko returned to the Fire Nation as a full-blown war hero. But there was a catch. Azula, being Azula, told everyone that Zuko was the one who killed the Avatar, which meant if Aang turned up alive, guess who'd take the fall? Zuko wasn't exactly sleeping easy after that. He got so paranoid, he hired a literal fire-blasting assassin, a guy with a third eye tattoo and zero chill. Seriously, this guy didn't miss. Like, ever. The world believed the Avatar was gone. The Fire Nation was in control. But the war was far from over. Aang was still alive, and a new plan was already in motion. While trying not to get deep-fried by brain-exploding blasts, Team Avatar had their first showdown with the mysterious Combustion Man. Barely making it out alive, they escaped to an island where Avatar Roku once lived. Meanwhile, Zuko, now officially a runaway prince, found a hidden scroll that led him deep into the royal palace. In the dungeons, he uncovered ancient records about Fire Lord Sozin. At the same time, Aang was diving into Roku's memories in the spirit world, and what they both discovered? Yeah, it changed everything. Decades before the war, Roku and Sozin were best friends, grew up together, dreamed big together. That is, until Roku was revealed as the Avatar, and Sozin took the throne as Fire Lord. They went their separate ways, but before parting, Sozin gave Roku a royal headpiece, basically the Fire Nation version of a friendship bracelet. Cute, right? While Roku was out there mastering all 4 elements and being the Avatar, Sozin was busy developing a dangerous little thing called world domination. Roku shut that down fast. Cut the crap, Sozin. Sozin backed off, or at least pretended to. Years later, a volcano erupted on Roku's island. Sozin showed up, at first looking like he came to help, but when Roku was vulnerable, Sozin bailed, left him to die. That betrayal sparked the war, and knowing the next Avatar would be born among the air nomads, the Fire Nation wiped out the air temples. But plot twist, they never found him, because Aang was already frozen in an iceberg. That truth hit Zuko like a ton of flaming cabbages. That night, he returned to Iroh's prison cell, desperate to understand why his uncle always believed in him, and that's when it clicked. For the first time, he realized something huge. The choice was always his to make. Meanwhile, Aang was drowning in nightmares about the upcoming invasion. With only days to go, the pressure of literally saving the world was crushing him. Toph, on the other hand, was chill as ever, hustling gamblers and winning big, much to Katara's horror. Sokka, in peak Sokka fashion, decided he needed a new pet and adopted a messenger hawk. On their journey, they ended up in a creepy forest where they met an old woman named Hama. At first, Katara was thrilled. Hama was a waterbender from the Southern Water Tribe, a rare and exciting connection, until things got very dark. Hama shared her past, captured by the Fire Nation, imprisoned for years, and in that hellish place, she developed a terrifying new skill, bloodbending. Under the full moon, she could control people's bodies like puppets. To her, it was the ultimate weapon. She insisted Katara learn it, use it to win the war, but Katara, horrified, refused. That is, until Hama threatened her friends. With no other choice, Katara used bloodbending to stop her. Hama, defeated, just smiled and said the one thing that would haunt Katara forever.
Congratulations, Katara. You're a bloodbender.
Aang shaved his head. He was ready. The Resistance had gathered allies from all over the world. The Mechanist and his son, the last of the freedom fighters. Swamp waterbenders who looked like they wrestled gators for breakfast. Haru and his dad, fresh out of prison. Even some old Earth Rumble fighters showed up for round 2. Before the battle, Aang finally dropped the L-bomb on Katara. But with a war on the horizon, there was no time for teenage romance drama. They had a mission. The plan was straightforward. Hit the Fire Nation while the solar eclipse turned off their bending powers like a light switch. Team Avatar led the charge, and Aang headed off alone to face Fire Lord Ozai. But something was off. The city was way too quiet. Then Azula showed up, smug as ever, like she'd been waiting for them with popcorn, because of course she had. They knew. They saw it coming. Meanwhile, Zuko was finally confronting his dad. No fear, no stutters. He laid it all out. The Avatar was alive, and he was done being Ozai's pawn. He was switching sides. Ozai, in classic villain fashion, got real mad real fast. But before the eclipse ended, he dropped a bombshell. Their mother, Ursa, was still alive. The night Azulon ordered Zuko's death, Ursa made a move. She poisoned the old man to save her son. The price? Exile. As the sun reappeared, Ozai launched a fire-fueled tantrum straight at his son. But Zuko, trained by the one and only Uncle Iroh, managed to hold his own and escape. Speaking of Iroh, he was no longer in prison because he broke out himself, left behind a bunch of traumatized guards and busted down cell doors like it was nothing.
He busted himself out. I've never seen anything like it. He was like a one-man army.
The invasion, a complete bust. No backup plan. No way out. Sokka's dad, wounded but still calling the shots, told them to retreat. The Resistance stayed behind to buy them time. The war was far from over, but that battle, it was already lost. After getting totally wrecked, Team Avatar went into hiding at the Western Air Temple. With no firebending teacher in sight, they started wondering if they were just doomed. And then, out of nowhere, boom, Zuko showed up. He was there to join them, for real, this time. Redemption arc activated. Problem is, his entrance? Absolutely absolute train wreck. He rehearsed this big, heartfelt speech, tried to look all humble and sorry, but nobody was buying it. Trust was already at rock bottom. Toph was the only one who believed him, but then Zuko accidentally burned her, and yeah, nobody was trying to hear her out after that. The real turning point came when Zuko literally risked his life to protect Aang and the gang from Boom Man himself. Mid-battle, Sokka, channeling his inner Legolas, landed a perfect shot right on the assassin's third eye, and boom, literally, guy exploded. At that point, there were no more doubts. Zuko was officially one of them, and Aang, he finally had a firebending master. Well, everyone was on board, except Katara. She was still on I'm watching you mode. Zuko's firebending training started off with a weird twist. His fire was weak, like barely a spark. He realized something was off. His fire used to come from his anger, his obsession with catching the Avatar, his daddy issues, basically a whole lot of emotional baggage. But now, that rage was gone, and with it, the power he'd always relied on. That's when Toph reveals that she actually learned earthbending from the original earthbenders themselves. Aang and Zuko figured the only way to help Zuko get his firebending back was to go straight to the source. The catch, everyone believed dragons, the original firebenders, were extinct. Zuko took aim to the ancient ruins of a civilization known as the Sun Warriors. There, he explained a brutal tradition from the Fire Nation's past. His grandfather, Sozin, had turned dragon hunting into a rite of passage. If a firebender could slay a dragon, they'd prove their strength. According to the rumors, Iroh had taken down the last one, dodging traps and learning a sacred dance that looked like it came straight out of a prehistoric TikTok. Aang and Zuko were eventually caught by the Sun Warriors. And then came the twist. Turns out, dragons weren't extinct after all. The legendary firebending masters showed up to judge them. If they were unworthy, well, let's just say dragon food was definitely on the table. With no other choice, the two performed the dragon dance as a sign of respect.
Judgment time.
And in return, they were accepted. What followed was a jaw-dropping display of multicolored flames that completely changed their understanding of firebending. Fire wasn't just destruction, it was life. And then came the biggest bombshell. Iroh had never killed the last dragon. He faked the story to protect the species. Absolute legend. Once they got back to the group, Zuko regained his fire bending. Fully committed to making things right, he teamed up with Sokka to break his dad and Suki out of the Fire Nation's deadliest prison, the Boiling Rock. The prison break was going surprisingly well, until Azula showed up. Because of course she did. It's like she has a sixth sense for crashing happy moments. But then came the unexpected MVP. May. She helped Zuko escape. When Azula confronted her, May stood her ground and hit her with a line that deserves its own mic drop.
I love Zuko more than I fear you.
And then Tyne Lee, finally following her heart and a moment of actual common sense, took down Azula with one clean strike before she could hurt May.
Come on! Let's get out of here!
Both girls were thrown in prison, and for the first time ever, Azula was truly alone. But Zuko's redemption arc wasn't over just yet. To prove himself to Katara, he offered to help her track down the man who had killed her mother. When they were kids, the Southern Water Tribe was attacked, and the commander of the raid was hunting a waterbender. Katara's mom took her place, claiming she was the bender to protect her daughter. Now, years later, there he was. Old, weak, completely insignificant. When the moment came to take revenge, Katara couldn't do it. He didn't deserve her rage. Zuko, who'd spent his entire life chasing his father's approval, finally saw the true cost of war, and with that chapter closed, he was officially part of the gang. So much so that he even interrupted a romantic moment between Sokka and Suki. Even though the invasion had flopped and Ba Sing Se had fallen, Team Avatar wasn't exactly spiraling into despair. Nope, they decided to chill at the beach, build sand castles, and soak up some sun like it was spring break. Zuko, of course, was not having it. That's when he dropped the bomb. Turns out, before the eclipse, Zuko had learned something that made all their previous problems look like a minor inconvenience. Ozai wasn't just planning to win the war, he was going full supervillain. With Sozin's comet on the way, his power would basically go nuclear. His plan, burn down the entire Earth Kingdom. But wait, it gets worse. Zuko also revealed Ozai's new title, Phoenix King, and guess who was going to be the new Fire Lord? Yup, Azula. Because what better combo than a power-hungry dad and his slightly unhinged daughter? Zuko didn't sugarcoat it. Aang had to stop him. Only problem? Aang couldn't accept it. Everyone around him kept saying he had to kill Ozai, but that went against everything he believed in. Peace, balance, no murder. The poor kid was spiraling, so he did what anyone would do in a crisis. He took a nap, and then he vanished. When he woke up, he found himself in a place he didn't recognize. With no idea what to do, he turned to the past avatars for guidance.
I offer you this wisdom, Aang. You must be decisive.
I offer you this wisdom, Aang. Only justice will bring peace.
You must actively shape your own destiny and the destiny of the world.
Selfless duty calls you to sacrifice your own spiritual needs and do whatever it takes to protect the world.
But even after all that, Aang just couldn't bring himself to accept that killing was the only way. That's when the island he was on pulled the ultimate plot twist. It wasn't an island at all. It was a freaking lion turtle. The ancient creature granted Aang a forgotten power. With no clue where Aang was, the rest of the crew turned to an old contact, Jun, the bounty hunter, but even she couldn't track him down. That's when Zuko had an idea. If anyone stood a chance against Ozai, it was Uncle Iroh. And just like that, they found the Order of the White Lotus. Bumi, Piandao, Zhong, Paku, now married to Gran by the way. Good for him. And of course, Iroh. Zuko hesitated. He was convinced his uncle hated him, but when they reunited, Iroh just pulled him into a hug and said, "I was never angry at you. I thought I'd lost my nephew." With the squad assembled, it was game time. The Order of the White Lotus took back Ba Sing Se. Sokka, Suki, and Toph went full mission to sabotage the Fire Nation's airships. Zuko and Katara faced off against Azula in a battle of fire and ice, and some serious sibling drama. And Aang is going toe-to-toe with Ozai himself. On the eve of her coronation, Azula was falling apart. Her own paranoia was eating her alive. After Mai and Ty Lee betrayed her, she fired all her guards. At that point, she was completely alone. Exactly how Zuko wanted her. But the fight? Totally unfair. Azula was unhinged, erratic, dangerous, unpredictable. When she realized she couldn't beat Zuko head-on, she went for Katara instead. Zuko jumped in the way of her lightning like a true fire prince with a redemption arc. Katara, cool-headed as ever, used her smarts and waterbending to trap Azula. And just like that, the princess collapsed, and the final battle began. With Sozin's comet in play, Ozai was basically a walking natural disaster, just raw destruction. No way Aang could win by force alone. He got backed into a corner, and then the Avatar state kicked in. Every past life joined the party. Aang went full spiritual Super Saiyan. Ozai never stood a chance. But in that final moment, Aang stopped. He wouldn't kill him. That wasn't who he was. Instead, he used what the lion turtle taught him, energy bending. Took away Ozai's fire bending for good. No more destruction. No more war. Just like that, the 100-year war was over.
You did it! You should have seen yourself. It was amazing! And the fire alarm was all like...
Azula was captured, Ozai locked up. Zuko became the new Fire Lord. Uncle Iroh finally got to open that tea shop. Honestly, the true endgame. Ty Lee joined the Kyoshi warriors. Mai stuck by Zuko's side, and things started looking up. Aang and Katara, after dancing around each other for ages, finally admitted how they felt, and together, they looked out over the world they helped save.